People are on their devices all day long. They're on social media, they're consuming news. So the question is, how do you make an ordinary moment turn into an opportunity for your remodeling business to stand out? And that's what we're going to talk about today. Real-time marketing for your remodeling business. Several years ago, we saw an excellent example of real-time marketing. Now, you may remember during the Super Bowl one year, Oreo capitalized on the power outage. So the power went out and they sent out a tweet with a graphic. The graphic was dark, there was an Oreo there and it said, "Power out, no problem, you can still dunk in the dark." And that was a huge opportunity for them because they took something that was happening in the moment, power went out, crazy, nobody would have expected that. And they jumped on it, right? They got creative, they put together a little graphic, they sent out a tweet, and then it blew up. They got a bunch of press. So what's the takeaway here? Basically, things are happening all the time. And so if you've got a feed coming in and you're looking for these opportunities, when something big happens, how can you turn that into an opportunity to send out a message that's either entertaining, that's funny, that adds some value, that adds some context to whatever that event is happening in real time? And that can typically be a great way to pick up some additional press. A lot of times the media is looking for people that are talking about these types of things. And so if you jump into the conversation, it can be a great way for somebody to reshare your content. You might get links back to your website, which really help the power of your website. So there's a lot of benefits that can come from this. But the first one is basically looking out for these real-time events that are going on and then jumping on them. All right, so how do we put this into practice? The first step is really to plan in advance. So I recommend looking at the calendar for the year and looking for things like holidays, special dates, could be seasons, or typically changes in the weather, because you might have something crazy going on at that time. So you'll never be able to anticipate all the things that come up, but it's nice to have a rough plan of what could come up. Once you have that in place, then you can look for opportunities like, say, Valentine's Day. Maybe you're talking about installing a whirlpool tub. Well, instead of just saying, "Hey, install this nice tub," you can relate it back to the timeliness of the holiday. And maybe you run a little campaign for 20 or 30 days where you say, "Hey, install the whirlpool tub and create a spa-like experience for your significant other just in time for Valentine's Day." And now you've just taken something normal and then you've tied it to a more relevant, timely event. Those types of things tend to get more traction on social media or out there as people are discussing or looking for news and information. All right, so the next piece is this topic called newsjacking. Now, newsjacking was a phrase that David Meerman Scott started talking about several years ago, where basically you're trying to insert yourself into the news. Now, a good rule of thumb is that you don't typically want to associate yourself with tragedy or loss. So something like a hurricane where people are losing their lives, it looks really insensitive if you kind of jump in and start saying, "Hey, we can do all these repairs for you, if you've lost your home." And obviously you want to use that as an opportunity to help people that are in need, but you do have to be careful in those situations. However, that being said, a good example was the Red Cross actually created a hurricane app where you could track information about, the storm and timing and what's going on and getting information. And so that was a very helpful way to insert themselves into what was going on. So that's the topic called newsjacking. All right, the third thing to keep in mind is to be relevant. So you have to use news that's going on right now, and that's really critical. So say you see an article about the real estate environment, and maybe you can talk about how it makes more sense to remodel your home than to sell your home. And so you can utilize the news or the data that came out and tap into that for your marketing efforts. Another example is, say, news that comes out around climate change. So that might give you the opportunity to talk about remodeling using energy efficient products. And so you use that news as an opportunity to tie in to that, and then that way you become more relevant in terms of what you're talking about. And the key is also you have to jump on this quickly. So if you're going to be taking lots of time to craft something and get something out there, and then the news is kind of come and gone, you may miss your window of opportunity. So that's something to keep in mind when you're focusing on being relevant, but you also have to be timely. All right, another rule for being relevant besides being timely is that you also need to think critically about what you're posting. And that kind of goes back to what I mentioned earlier. So you want to be sensitive. So make sure as you're consuming the news and you're looking for these opportunities, you don't get too hasty and maybe say something that you know won't land very well with your audience. So again, be timely, but also think critically as you're moving quickly through this process. All right, the last thing to keep in mind is don't force it. So as you're looking through news articles, you're noticing when holidays are coming up, you're looking for opportunities to jump in. Don't force it if it doesn't feel right. As you're crafting that email or crafting that social post, if it feels like, this feels off-brand or it just doesn't feel good, there's other opportunities. So don't feel like you need to force that action and just wait for the next opportunity. Now, if social media seems a little intimidating and this idea of real-time marketing and kind of jumping into the conversation feels scary, then we've got a program for you, and it's called Done For You Social Media. And you can subscribe to that. We've got content for you. You can copy and paste these, and that way you can jump right in and start capitalizing on some of these social efforts and things that are happening in the marketplace. So we've got a link for you below if you want to learn more about the program. But I hope you enjoyed today's topic on real-time marketing, and definitely share with us your successes as you start to experiment with this strategy.